Hi everyone. This is my TED Talk inspired presentation on an article from the Journal of Theological Studies titled Origin of Alexandria in the History of Racism as a Theological Problem. My name is Jaden Lee, and yeah, let's get right into it. I wanted to open up with the question, what is racism, and kind of my position on it. I have a dictionary definition where racism is prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism directed against a person or people on the basis of their membership in a particular racial or ethnic group. I feel like by now everyone has a pretty good idea of what is racism. Um, Here are some contemporary examples of racism, such as the Ku Klux Klan, which are still very much around. Um, Muslim regards after 9/11, where after that event, Muslims got a lot of hate for something they had no control over. The Asian hate during the recent pandemic, as you can see, I'm still wearing a mask from the COVID-19 pandemic, where it originated from Wuhan, China. And I think that became Asians became a big target of blame, even though there was nothing they could do about it. Um, and like the largest one that people see right now is the Black Lives Matter movement. There's a lot of controversy, conversation regarding them, which I will go a lot more into later. So I also wanted to ask, I want to present the question, who am I? Um, I am 100% Asian, 100% Vietnamese, and I think being a minority, it kind of puts me in more of a position to know about this stuff. Why does it all matter to me? Well, I am a minority and I have been subject to racist jokes or racist ideas, and I just wanted to better educate myself of the origin of racism and just the ideology that comes with it. On, I want to present another question that is, what is Christianity, and kind of give my position on it. The general gist of Christianity is that God is the creator who sent Jesus down to earth to correct people. But in general, it's that there is one divine creator that kind of put each piece where he intended. I also wanted to give like the scope of just how big Christianity is. In the world, it's around like 38% of the entire world's population, of the 7.6 billion people. In the US alone, it's already 75% that identify as Christians. Um, some contemporary examples of the prevalence of Christianity is like saying under God in the Pledge of Allegiance, which was added and sounds kind of choppy if you really think about it. The Bible itself and its references are through the religion of Christianity, as that is the holy text that they follow. Holidays such as Christmas and Easter are days that people have off, as they are holidays directly correlated with Christianity. So the whole religion is definitely a very large role in the United States. I also once again wanted to ask, who am I? Um, just as I am Asian, I also identify as being a Christian. More specifically, I am a Catholic. And through this, I kind of found interest in this article as it kind of amalgates the two aspects of my personality, my religion and my ethnicity, and kind of puts them into an idea together. So, moving on to the actual article that this presentation revolves around, um, the rough idea, abstract, if you may, of the article is that it addresses the origin of racism and it describes the work of Origen of Alexandria. Um, so it really got into the details of the many positions that Origen took and kind of related them back to modern racist modes of thinking. And through this, it also kind of tied back all of the racist history to the Christian matrix, and this being a problem far beyond even medieval periods. So now I kind of wanted to go into Origen of Alexandria himself and who he was. He was a Christian scholar and theologian whose ideas were incredibly important throughout the first 3 centuries of common time. Um, his claims are kind of a glimpse to the development of racism, although he never explicitly says it. It's not hard to derive the racist thoughts that they supported. Um, in a way, he kind of challenged how Christianity is often made out to be an anti racist religion. Of course, that wasn't his intent at the time, but only looking back objectively can we kind of make that assertion. Um, and in this article, it kind of juxtaposes the thoughts of how he was a champion for equality of men. And in reality, he actually played a very large role in the unequal treatment of men. He kind of followed these 4 major claims. These being there are superior and inferior people in this world. The second being individuals who belong to an inferior people are in this position as a result of their own sinfulness. They have fully merited their inferior status, meaning that people who are inferior completely deserve it. Third being some inferior people have objectively wicked customs. These were instituted as punishment for their sins, which is kind of seen as people in the inferior people's culture is really their wicked customs. Um, and geological location and ethnic inferiority are interrelated. So I also wanted to detail this idea that he had called the first principles, and it's kind of like the fundamental aspect of his theology. The idea is that rational beings are assigned a place in the world according to merit, not complete random chance. This means that at the beginning, everyone was equal. And as people began to move through lives and sinned, in their next life, they would be put in a worse position due to how they were in the past. And in this way, it seems that God would never give certain people advantages for no good reason, and that if you were in a bad position, you deserve to be in a bad position due to your prior existences. There's a quote that you can read here that basically just describes how God is not impartial at all. In reality, he was even, and everyone who was in a bad position deserved what they got. This article often talked about the Scythians and the Ethiopians. The Scythians being extremely far north in the cold, and the Ethiopians being far south in the extreme hot. Both are in extremely bad climates. Both were treated incredibly poorly. However, due to this ideology, it kind of justified their treatment. So through this, there are connections that can be made to more recent acts of racism. The idea that the Ethiopians seem particularly fitted for slavery is corresponding with the ideas in the 1700s that justified white plantation owners having many slaves, as they were also particularly fitted for slavery. The idea of superior and inferior people itself is also kind of a justification for slavery, as it often changed the treatment and perception of members of the inferior people, and it kind of justified that they kind of deserve what they got. The idea that these inferior people had done bad things in their prior life means that they deserve to be a slave, or they deserve to be abused or harassed. That ideology itself leads to racist actions. So there's kind of another correspondence and connection of Origen's ideas to modern racism, as there is kind of a certain false degree of fluidity. I say false because this isn't really how it works. Back then, people could just live good lives, and it would be that they would live a good life in their next lifetime, not this current lifetime. This is kind of like in modern times when it's like the wealth gap between African Americans and white American people. They don't get the same opportunities, thus there will not be the same chance of them making money. There is an opportunity, but without the same opportunities, it's not really equality. So another connection that can be made is the use of the term sinful behavior, which is really just the inferior people's culture. This could be seen as what they ate and their customs, which was seen as things that God did to punish them. So I also wanted to present the question, why should this matter to you? The first thing I want to ask is there any possible similarities you have to me? You don't have to be Asian, perhaps you're part of some sort of minority group that faces discrimination. Or maybe you are also a Christian slash Catholic slash any religion and you kind of just want to see the origins of racism. Maybe there's people in your community that can relate to me. Another reason is that in general, this stuff is just interesting. It's interesting in learning about the history of such a controversial topic. It's also important to educate yourself a little bit due to the current climate of the United States. It's important to be self aware, and learning this may assist you in that. So, now moving on, I kind of want to detail a little bit about the Black Lives Matter movement, which I mentioned before, or BLM for short. It was founded July 13th, 2013. However, recently the movement really spread due to the tragic death of George Floyd, which many saw as a hate crime. Um, some of the things that they fight for is such as like defunding the police. They are very anti-white supremacy as they are striving for equality, and those kind of fit in the agenda together. I also kind of wanted to detail why BLM is important and why it kind of matters in this specific context. Um, what they are doing is putting black leaders to push an agenda for black people, which makes sense because black leaders would have a first-hand experience of what life is like and what needs to change. It also allows for more representation, which is a large aspect of why the US runs on a democracy. A large part of the US and the Revolutionary War was taxation without representation, which basically means that those who are being ruled need to have some sort of control in their own government. And then tying that back to why it's important in this context is because I feel like the history of racism is important in determining the correct action to take against it. Its prevalence in traditional Christian beliefs can explain why it's so difficult for the US to move past it. And in doing this, I feel like this article was a major example of why the separation of church and state should be pushed even further, as the church may not hold the same values that are good nor accurate in modern times. Whether it's Christianity, Judaism, Islam, any religion should be separated from the state. So that's kind of where I wanted to leave this presentation off, kind of giving my 2 cents on a potential solution for the racism problem in the US. As a Christian, there are still many Christian beliefs that I relate to, that I enjoy, that I hold true to my heart, and that is why I'm still practicing. However, Christianity is incredibly old, and certain ways of thinking should not be followed through nor implemented into our government. The Matter movement is a modern example of challenging these ideals in order to get rid of them in the government and create a better democracy. Thank you guys for listening to my TED Talk. This topic meant a lot for me. As stated before, it is kind of a cohesion of two very large aspects of my life, and it really challenged my view of Christianity. In no way am I saying that I will no longer be practicing, but I think there are certain aspects of a religion that people must hold on to, and certain aspects that belong in the past that should be moved past. And racism has no place in the world and must be worked past. Great night, and once again, thank you so much for listening.